Hi, welcome back to Revenge Red. We're going to start the story right now. My name is Claire Morgan. I'm 34, a single mom, and I've spent the last 2 years quietly paying another household's rent while they called me irresponsible to my face. Tonight, all of that comes to a head over a plate of steak I couldn't afford for myself, but somehow could afford for them. We're at a rooftop steakhouse in downtown Austin, the kind of place where the cheapest cut costs more than my weekly grocery bill. I'm squeezed into the end of a long table, my 8-year-old daughter beside me, trying to swing her feet without kicking anyone. I'm the one who covered the deposit on my brother's apartment. I'm the one who picked up my mom's overdue utility bills without broadcasting it. I'm the one who said, "It's okay, I've got you," every time they called crying about money. And somehow, I'm also the one they decided to ridicule in front of everyone. When the menus disappear and the wine starts flowing, my brother leans back, looks right past me, and tells the waiter, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "We didn't order for your daughter." A few minutes later, their kids are cutting into $120 steaks while a lonely sandwich lands in front of my child like it was scraped together from the kids' menu. My mom takes one look, smirks, and says, "Next time, pack her something from home, Claire. This isn't really a place for kids like her." Then she laughs when my brother calls me embarrassing for bringing my daughter at all, while I'm the one who kept a roof over their heads for 2 years. I just smile and say one word: understood. Because what they don't know is that by the time the waiter comes back, I'm going to stand up, make one announcement, and turn this entire dinner and our family dynamic inside out. Before I tell you exactly what I said when I stood up and how that one sentence blew up our family group chat for months, do me a favor. Tell me what time it is where you are and what country you're watching from. I love seeing how far stories like this travel. By the time we walked into that restaurant, I already knew this wasn't just family dinner. It was a test I hadn't agreed to take. All day, my mom had been blowing up my phone with messages about how important tonight was, how proud she was of my brother, how everyone needed to show up and support him properly. According to her, this dinner was about celebrating my brother's big promotion. Regional sales manager at some tech supply company. According to me, it was about pretending the last 2 years hadn't happened. 2 years of me, a licensed electrician running a small solar installation business, sending the same transfer on the first of every month so my brother and his wife wouldn't get evicted from their trendy apartment. 2 years of my mom bragging about his potential while telling me I should be grateful my trade school certification at least lets you pay your own bills. Have you ever noticed how some families act like help from you is a duty, but help to you is a favor? Walking into that steakhouse, I could already feel the pecking order humming in the air. My brother at the center of the table, telling the waiter which bottle of wine to bring like he was the one topping up everyone's glasses. My mom glued to his side, all smiles and hand squeezes, dressed up like this was an awards show. Me at the far end, with my daughter, squeezed between a plant and the last chair like they ran out of space and almost didn't invite us. "Claire, you made it," my mom said, like I'd almost failed a test. She kissed the air near my cheek, and then gave my daughter a quick nod. "You should have left her with a sitter. This place is a lot for kids." I swallowed the comment I wanted to make, about how sitters cost money, how I'd just come from a 10-hour shift on a job site where I was crawling through attics to run conduit, while my brother posted latte photos and "grind never stops" captions. Instead, I helped my daughter into her chair, tucked her napkin into her lap, and smiled. Because tonight, I wasn't here to fight about every little dig. I was here to watch, to listen, to let them hang themselves with their own words. Have you ever walked into a room knowing people were about to show you exactly who they are if you just stopped rescuing them for 5 minutes? That was me, sitting at the end of the table, quietly counting how many times my brother said, "my promotion," while conveniently forgetting to mention whose bank account had kept his promising future from collapsing. The first real hit of the night landed the moment the orders went in. The server made his way down the line, scribbling as everyone chose the most expensive thing without even glancing at the right side of the menu. "I'll do the bone-in ribeye," my brother said, "medium rare, and get the kids the same, they've been talking about steak all week." Their kids bounced in their seats, already giddy from soda refills and a dessert menu they hadn't even seen yet. When the server's eyes reached me, I almost laughed. My brain did that automatic calculation it always does. Rent, utilities, school shoes, groceries, the part of my truck that needs replacing, before I reminded myself of the one fact that changed everything. This bill wasn't mine. For once, I wasn't the safety net. "I'll have the grilled chicken," I said, picking the cheapest thing that didn't sound like it came out of a microwave. "And for your daughter?" the waiter asked. Before I could open my mouth, my brother cut in. "She's fine with something simple," he said, waving his hand like my child was an afterthought. "Kids never finish anything fancy, just get her a sandwich. Whatever you have. We didn't order for her in the main count." The words hit me like a slap I'd seen coming but still somehow wasn't ready for. My daughter looked up at me, eyes flicking between my face and his. Have you ever watched a child try to figure out whether they're being insulted? It's like you can see their trust being rewired in real time. My mom laughed, actually laughed, and tipped her glass toward the waiter. "You heard him. She's picky. Claire should have packed her something from home anyway. You know how limited her situation is." "Embarrassing," my brother added under his breath but loud enough. "Dragging kids to an adult's dinner and expecting us to cover it." That one stung in a special way, because, do you know what's really embarrassing? Using the debit card of the sister you mock to pay your rent, watching your notifications pop up with "transfer successful," and still telling people she never really made anything of herself. I felt my jaw tense, felt that familiar heat crawl up my neck, but I kept my face blank. The sandwich arrived a few minutes later, plain, small, sad, on a giant plate. My daughter tried so hard to pretend she didn't care, but I saw the way she glanced at her cousin's steaks, the way her fork hesitated. I leaned toward her and quietly said, "Hey, kiddo, you and I are going to have our own dinner later, okay?" She nodded, her eyes searching mine, as if asking a question she didn't know how to phrase. Why don't they think I matter as much? That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about me being disrespected. This was about the story my daughter was going to tell herself about what she deserves. And I swear to you, I felt something shift in my chest, like a breaker flipping in an electrical panel. "Understood," I said out loud, but it wasn't to my brother. It was to myself. Have you ever had that split second where you decide, quietly and permanently, that you are done being the backup plan for people who wouldn't even order your child a proper meal? That was my moment. I picked up my water, took a sip, and started mentally rewiring the night around one simple truth. I wasn't going to rescue them anymore. Here's the thing my brother and my mom didn't know while they were clinking glasses over his promotion. This dinner had perfect timing. For me. 2 weeks earlier, I'd closed on a tiny, beat-up starter home on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, 2 bedrooms, a yard that needed work, and a garage I could turn into a workshop for my tools and extra panels. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't just paying someone else's mortgage, I was paying my own. I'd also sent one last transfer to my brother's landlord with a simple note attached. "This is the final payment I'll be making on their behalf. Please direct all future communication to the primary tenants." No drama, no big speech, just a switch flipped off. Have you ever quietly prepared your exit while everyone assumed you'd never leave? That's exactly what I'd done. Tonight was never about whether I could afford steak. It was about whether my brother could afford to keep living a life subsidized by the sister he publicly belittled. As they ate, I let the conversation wash over me. My mom bragging about his new company car. My brother complaining about his exhausting schedule, despite the fact that I'd driven straight from a hot attic to get here. He told a story about helping out a coworker, and my mom grabbed his hand like he'd just saved a life. No one at that table had ever asked how many nights I'd stayed up with a flashlight in my daughter's room because the power had been cut while I waited for the next job to pay out. They definitely hadn't asked how it felt to wire luxury homes I'd never be able to live in. "You're quiet tonight, Claire," my mom finally said, dabbing her mouth with her napkin. "Are you tired from— what is it again? Installing solar stuff?" "Panels," I said. "And yeah, long day." My brother snorted. "Come on, Mom, don't make her talk about wires at dinner. We're celebrating." "Nah." "You mean we're celebrating the promotion that only happened because you didn't have to move back in with Mom when you lost your last job?" I asked, still calm. "Must be nice not having to pack up your kids every time the rent's due." His eyes flicked to mine, irritation flashing across his face. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I said. "Just thinking out loud." I let the silence stretch exactly long enough to make him uncomfortable. "Do you ever get that feeling?" I said, mostly to the table, but knowing people nearby could hear, that the person everyone calls embarrassing is actually the one holding everything together? The woman sitting with my aunt looked down at her plate. My aunt's eyebrows lifted just a fraction. My mom waved a hand, dismissing it. "Claire, please, don't start. This is Jason's night." There it was. His name, his spotlight, his celebration. It was always somebody else's night. Meanwhile, I was the one still covered in drywall dust, expected to sit quietly in the shadows and clap on cue. Have you ever wondered what would happen if the quiet, responsible one finally opened their mouth and told the truth in front of everyone? I decided right then that I was going to find out. But I wasn't going to do it by screaming. I was going to do it by making one clean cut. The moment I'd been waiting for came when the waiter returned to ask about dessert and the check. He stood at the head of the table, pen ready, and my brother raised his hand like a king, signaling his servant. "Yeah, we'll do the dessert sampler for the table," he said, not asking anyone, not looking at me. "And put everything on one check." "On one check?" the waiter repeated, glancing around. My brother jerked his thumb toward my mom. "Yeah, she's good for it," he said, laughing. "Or my sister. She's used to picking up the slack." That was it. Not the sandwich, not the comments about my daughter, not even the word embarrassing. That one sentence, "she's used to picking up the slack," was the fuse I'd been coiling all night. I pushed my chair back and stood up. The scrape of wood on tile cut through the music and conversation around us. Have you ever felt an entire room tilt toward you, like gravity just shifted? That's what it felt like. "Actually," I said, my voice steady but loud enough to carry, "I'm not picking up any more slack." My brother froze mid-laugh. My mom looked up, confused, a fork halfway to her mouth. The waiter hesitated, pen hovering over his pad. "I'm going to keep this short," I continued, looking directly at my brother. "For the past 2 years, while you were figuring out your next move, I've been paying your rent. Every month. On time. Quietly. While you and Mom joked about how I just do some trade work and should be more like you." A few heads turned at nearby tables. My brother's face drained of color. "Claire, not here," my mom hissed. "Sit down." "No," I said. "Here is exactly where this belongs, because you had no problem humiliating me and my daughter in public. So we're going to tell the truth in public too." I pulled my phone out of my pocket and scrolled to the transfer history, the same list I'd stared at 100 times lying awake at night. 24 payments, I said. 2 deposits. Late fees when you forgot to send me your portion. That's what I covered while you called me embarrassing, and while you couldn't even order my child a proper meal. My brother started to sputter. You offered. You said you wanted to help. I did, I agreed. Help, not enable. And there's a difference. Which is why, as of last week, I canceled the automatic transfers. I told your landlord to contact you directly. And next month, when the rent is due, nothing is coming from my bank account. The table went silent. Even the waiter had stopped pretending not to listen. Claire, you can't just... My mom began. I turned to her. Mom, you've spent years making excuses for him while telling me to be more understanding. I installed panels in 100-degree heat to keep this family from falling apart, and you still treated me like I'm the child who never figured it out. I'm done playing that role. I looked back at my brother and let the next words land like a hammer. You called me embarrassing tonight. You humiliated my daughter. So here's my announcement. I'm not your safety net anymore. I won't be your rent, your emergency fund, or your silent punching bag. You wanted to order steak and pretend you're the provider? Great. Providers pay their own bills. Have you ever watched someone realize in real time that the person they thought would always bail them out has stopped? My brother's mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. His wife stared at him, shock etched all over her face. You told me your mom was helping, she whispered. You never said it was Claire. My aunt let out a low, disbelieving laugh. All this time, she said. And you treated her like that? At that point, I wasn't even angry anymore. Just clear. Waiter, I said calmly, turning back to him. Please split the check. Put my meal and my daughter's on a separate ticket. We'll be leaving after that. And whatever they ordered? I jerked my chin toward my brother. That's on him. He's used to being the big shot. Let him act like it. The waiter nodded slowly, like he'd been rooting for me this whole time. As he walked away, the table exploded. Are you insane? My mom snapped, her voice low but sharp. You don't humiliate family like this. You mean like calling your daughter embarrassing in front of a whole restaurant? I asked. Or like laughing when her kid is handed a sandwich while yours cut into $100 steaks? I wasn't shouting. I didn't need to. The facts spoke loud enough. My brother finally found his voice. You're overreacting, he said, his face flushed. This is exactly why nobody takes you seriously. You blow everything out of proportion. Really? I said. Because from where I'm standing, I'm the only one who's been taking anything seriously. Rent, late notices, utilities, grown-up stuff. I turned to his wife. Did you know I paid the security deposit on your apartment? That I covered the months when he told you the bank messed up? She stared at him, eyes filling with tears. Tell me she's lying, she said. He didn't answer. That silence was louder than any confession. Have you ever watched someone's image crack in front of the exact audience they'd been trying to impress? My brother always needed to look like he was the one in control. Tonight, the mask finally slipped. Claire, you should have talked to us privately, my mom insisted. This is cruel. I shook my head. What's cruel is teaching my daughter that we just smile and take it when family disrespects us. What's cruel is letting her think she deserves less because her mom works with her hands instead of sitting behind a desk. My daughter squeezed my hand under the table. I could feel her pulse, fast and scared, but she didn't let go. Mom, she whispered, are we in trouble? No, baby, I said softly. We're setting a boundary. That's not trouble. That's protection. I looked around the table at every relative who had ever stayed quiet while the jokes piled up. You all have watched this for years, I said. The comments, the digs, the way I was always expected to fix everything. I'm not asking anyone to take my side. I'm just telling you my part in this story is over. My aunt finally spoke up. She's right, she said. I've seen the transfers. Claire's not lying. Jason, you've let her carry you while you treated her like a joke. That's on you. My mom shot her a glare. Diane, stay out of this. You dragged us all here to support family, my aunt replied. Well, this is what support looks like to me, telling the truth. My brother slammed his hand on the table, glasses rattling. Fine, he snapped. You want me to be the bad guy? Congratulations. But don't come crawling back when you need something, Claire. Remember this when you're alone. That's the difference between us, I said quietly. I've already learned how to stand on my own. You still don't know how to stand without someone holding you up. I bent down to my daughter. We're leaving after I pay our part, okay? We'll grab real food somewhere else. She nodded, relief washing over her face. Have you ever had that moment where you realize your kid isn't just watching what you say, but what you tolerate? That realization hit me harder than anything my brother could have said. My phone buzzed on the table, a text from my landlord friend confirming what I already knew. The lease transfer was processed. Next month, everything would land directly in my brother's lap. No buffer, no cushion, no me. So here's the last thing I'll say, I told the table. If you want to keep pretending this dynamic is normal, that's your choice. But my daughter and I won't be part of it anymore. We will not sit at tables where we're asked to swallow disrespect along with our food. I straightened, feeling oddly calm. Ask yourself this. If you saw this happening to someone else, not your family, just a stranger, would you tell them to stay and not make a scene? Or would you tell them to get up and leave? I let that question hang there, not just for them, but for anyone who's ever stayed at a table that was slowly breaking them. The check came, split just the way I'd asked. I paid for my meal and my daughter's sad sandwich, added a tip that made the server's eyes soften, and stood. My brother stared at his portion of the bill like it was written in another language. My mom opened her mouth to say something. Guilt trip, threat, I don't know, but I held up a hand. Don't, I said. We've said enough for tonight. My daughter and I walked out of that restaurant into the thick Texas evening, the city lights reflecting off the buildings around us. For the first time in years, I felt lighter, even though my legs were shaking. Are you okay? My daughter asked, her small hand tucked in mine as we crossed the parking lot. I am, I said, and I meant it. Are you? She thought about it for a second with that serious little face of hers. I didn't like when they laughed, she admitted, but I liked when you told them the truth. I swallowed the lump in my throat. That's the thing, kiddo. Telling the truth can feel scary, but sometimes it's the only way to stop people from walking all over you. We drove through a fast food place and ordered exactly what she wanted. We ate it on the tailgate of my work truck in the parking lot of my soon-to-be home, looking at the dark outline of a house that needed more repairs than I had weekends. And yet, I'd never been prouder of anything in my life. A month later, the fallout reached me, not because I was in the middle of it, but because people couldn't quite believe I'd stayed gone. My mom called furious, saying my brother was under so much stress because the landlord expected the full rent on time and wouldn't cut him a break now that I was out of the picture. He's even talking about having to move, she said, like that was the worst fate imaginable. Good, I replied. Maybe he'll finally understand what it's like to live within his means. You can't be serious, Claire, she snapped. He has kids. So do I said. And mine deserves a mom who isn't drained and resentful because she's paying for a lifestyle that doesn't belong to her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't justify. I just repeated the truth. I'm not going back to the way things were. When she realized I meant it, the calls slowed. The guilt texts got shorter. The family group chat went from, Claire, you're being dramatic, to silence whenever my name came up. 6 months later, I heard my brother and his wife had separated for a while. Money fights, broken promises, the usual. I also heard he'd finally taken a second job and downgraded to a cheaper apartment across town. Do I celebrate that? No, I don't need his life to fall apart to feel vindicated. His consequences are his. My healing is mine. What I do celebrate is this. My daughter and I moved into that little starter home. We painted walls on weekends, planted cheap flowers from the clearance rack, and turned the garage into a space where she could do homework while I serviced inverters and prepped for jobs. One Saturday, as we were untangling extension cords, she said, "You know that night at the restaurant?" I braced myself. "Yeah?" She smiled, just a little. "That was the first time I saw you choose us instead of them." If you've ever wondered whether your kids notice when you set boundaries, let me tell you, they do. They might not have the words for it yet, but they feel the difference between a parent who is constantly drained by everyone else's demands and a parent who finally says, "No more." Here's the lesson I took from all of this, and maybe it's the part you need to hear. Family doesn't get a free pass to disrespect you just because you share DNA. Helping is generous. Being used is destructive. And the moment you stop confusing one for the other, your whole life shifts. You are allowed to close your wallet and your door to people who mock you while taking from you. You are allowed to say, "I'm done," even if they call you ungrateful, dramatic, or cold. The truth? The people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always label your limits as betrayal. That doesn't make you wrong. It just means you finally stepped out of the role they wrote for you. So I'll leave you with this question. If you were sitting at that table, watching someone hand your child a cheap sandwich while they carved into expensive steak you paid for, at what point would you stand up? And when you finally did, would you stay to argue? Or would you walk out and build a life where you and your kid never have to beg for a seat at the table again? Thank you for listening. All stories on this channel are entirely fictional and are designed to share educational lessons, useful knowledge, and positive values with our viewers. This script highlights the importance of self-respect, healthy boundaries, and emotional education within the family. Through a dramatic but fictional situation, it encourages viewers to think critically about how we treat others and what we teach our children about dignity and kindness. The goal is not just to entertain, but to provide useful knowledge and life lessons that can inspire healthier relationships in real life. Red. We're going to start the story right now.